is Lloyd Norman. I work with Zions Bancorporation. I appreciate the opportunity to share a few thoughts with you today about resource portfolio management. I run the RMO at Zions Bancorporation. For those of you that are not familiar with Zions Bancorporation, we have affiliate banks in the Western United States. We manage roughly $70 billion worth of assets, over 1 million customers from Texas through Washington State. If you're in the Idaho, Utah area, you'll be familiar with the Zions Bank logo. But if you're in other places, some of the other banks that are part of our affiliates would be Amity Bank of Texas, California Bank and Trust, Commerce Bank of Oregon, Commerce Bank of Washington, and others, Vector Bank in Colorado. We're a financial institution, and as such, we do all the complex work that you might guess is involved with that. Everything from treasury management to mobile banking, risk compliance, audit, regulatory, legal, all of those things. The job of the RMO is really emerging at Zions Bancorp. We plan people to priorities, and I've appreciated several of the presentations that have occurred already today. Appreciate Prosymmetry for scheduling this. The concept of people, and I realize it's almost a sort of a new age thing, if you will, but I prefer to use the term people over resources, even though I'm here to talk to you about resource portfolio management. If you look at what we've done at Zions Bancorp, I think it really has taught a couple of lessons. One is, no matter what your automation tool is, you've got to have proficient processes that work with that in order to make it work. If you really want to drive benefits, and your processes need to be lightweight and strong. I tell people that we're continually aiming for the carbon fiber processes, right? Lightweight, strong, efficient. We're extremely happy that a little over 3 years ago now, we combined our emerging processes with Tempus. We did an extensive evaluation process at the time, looking at various PPM tools, how we might adjust our processes using Excel. We looked at a variety of different tools and chose Tempus, and have really never looked back. I perceived them to be the leader at the time and very much still feel that way now. We are now, 3 years later, using Tempus at really every layer of ETO, our enterprise technology operations. We literally forecast millions of hours a month across over 500 project, agile, and production support initiatives. At every single layer here, you can kind of see a bit of how Tempus is used. Essentially at the very basic level, we've got people. People track their time. We use a separate time tracking tool because we've been mandated by our finance and accounting department to do so. But we pull those hours in every month. Actually, we pull them in every week into Tempus. So people are tracking their time weekly. The projects and Scrum Masters, we have over 70 of them that are using Tempus, and they forecast. They're in and out of there all the time, but are required to do monthly financial reconciliation for internal labor and external labor, both of which we track in Tempus. Resource managers, we have over 85 of them, cross-functionally supporting various projects and initiatives, over 140 unique job roles. Those 85 are, and we have others that we're still pulling in. That's about 60% of the resource management community. We're continuing to broaden our footprint, but we went to the most problematic resources at first, i.e. those that are most constrained, started there, and we've been expanding outward. So all of them also forecast their teams. The projects that are working with team members that they supply have a delicate dance, if you will, between what the PMs put in and what the RMs put in. I'll talk about that as well. Program management and senior management mostly review reports. We're able to provide some really interesting data for them about where constraints are, where risks are. We can show them over-allocated roles, and I'll get into that in just a couple of minutes. I've got about 10 slides here. And clearly, in terms of benefits, early visibility, there's already been talk about how if you really want to make this work, you've got to provide visibility across the enterprise. We are doing that for both users and non-users of Tempus. I'm not so naive as to think that I'm going to get the C-suite to log into Tempus. Much as I would love to have that happen, we're typically exporting data, formatting it, creating dashboards, and sharing it to them in tools that they're accustomed to seeing. Our confidence in our cost and delivery and total cost of ownership estimates has risen dramatically. Obviously, we're seeing fewer personnel arbitrations, and we're seeing grossly improved capitalization, which is something that I'm going to share about as well. You know, from a lightweight process perspective, we're providing notifications. Anytime there's a constraint, the resource managers that are using Tempus are updating that constraint status. We pull those status weekly and have a well-groomed escalation process for that. Exception reports, if we can tell that people are not in their forecasting in a way that's accurate and meaningful, we're calling them out on that. We regularly review plan versus actual variance, not really for punitive reasons, but really so that we can identify where do we have issues in terms of either how people are billing towards specific projects, or do we have particular job roles that are particularly challenging to forecast for the Scrum Master and project management community, all of which we can go help try to improve. So lightweight processes, everybody using this. And I say everybody, clearly we're still growing our footprint, right? But up and down the line, everybody receiving benefit from that. And let's talk about benefits here. A couple of things. One, at any layer in this triangle, in this pyramid, so to speak, we never expect more than 1 hour a month of process related to resource portfolio management. You've got to keep these things lightweight, or people are simply not going to adopt them. You know, at the bottom level, it's people. They track their time. The benefit for them is, huge reduction in heroic efforts. I have had numerous resource managers contact me and thank me to tell me that they don't have their people pushing to 60 to 80-hour weeks anymore, which is great. That's probably the most rewarding aspect of what we do. I'm a firm believer that, for better or for worse, people take a lot of what goes on at work to home with them. And, if you're stressing out individuals, you're likely stressing out families. And the ramifications of stressing out families, I would submit to you, is not good for communities or society at large. So you may think that's very altruistic, a little bit broad, but I actually believe that very much. I've been on the receiving end of that. Project and Scrum Masters. I could tell you, but I won't tell you, the incredibly, the reduction in the number of projects that we've seen that have had to push their schedules due to resource delays. It was absolutely abysmal, if I may say, prior to our implementing this process. We are saving millions of dollars just in runtime costs alone, let alone the improved time to market that we're bringing new capabilities. Resource managers, we are greatly reducing their context switching. It used to be that they were very much interrupt driven. Now, and this gets back to some of the principles that Don has espoused, if you have a more steady state flow, then it's much more easy to adapt to change, right? And we're seeing that across the board for those that are using Tempus. You're more effectively able to adapt to unplanned work. And of course, much longer runway in terms of demand visibility, what's coming down the pipe. Senior management, again, greater labor capitalization, much higher and effective and granular look at what are our total cost of ownership, all of which was, I'm going to say, just flat out unreasonable to try to get at prior to us implementing these procedures. And then, of course, from a senior management perspective, also early visibility to portfolio and project risks and hiring needs. So I've sort of captured some of this. What are the key questions that we've been driving to answer? Many of these are similar to what Bob Blackburn talked about. What strategic work is constrained? And I would submit to you that that's a layered question right there. The first thing you got to identify is, what is your strategic work, right? Then you have to find out what risks may become constraints, and I'll speak to that in just a minute a little more deeply. Are we capturing all capitalizable labor? Work is planned, but what have people actually been doing? Where do we have capacity now? I thought it was interesting. One of the last times I met with my CIO, I came in planning to discuss, based on our models, where we have overallocated resources. And she really flipped the table, as CIOs are wont to do, right? Make you think a little bit more broadly. She immediately started getting off of that topic and saying, look, where do we have capacity, right? I know you'll figure out the constraint issues. Where do we have capacity, and what can we do with those people? And it just led to all kinds of very interesting discussions, which also assume, by the way, that you have some sort of reasonable confidence in the accuracy of your forecast, especially for planned work. All right, so let me talk through some of these things real quick. We identify constraints across all work types. That's waterfall projects, agile initiatives, production support work, all of it, right? We have, using the assignment attribute, people go in and update specifically based on a number of different constraint types what the problem is. If they flat don't have anybody, they tell us, I don't have anybody. If they've been working on hiring, so the resolution has somewhat been identified, right? I'm going to bring more resource to bear, but they haven't been able to hire, then that's an issue, right? Especially if you're trying to replace a single-threaded resource, which we also help identify. Every time a constraint goes red, the PM receives email notification of that, or the same if a reject occurs. We pull these stats weekly and share those with senior and executive management regularly. Okay, a couple of other things. We have an ongoing model that we work with that, again, cuts across all of our different initiatives. We're able to identify overallocated and single-threaded roles, and this is what I mean by risks becoming constraints. If you've got overallocated roles, something like here, right? You've got a manager here, you've got a specific role here that's showing 119% utilization. Well, there's several things that you better think about before you start escalating this. The first thing is, how accurate is your data? It's very easy for us to go back and look 90 days and see what's the forecast accuracy by job role for this manager. And if this particular manager has been hovering around 70% forecast accuracy, I'm not even darkening the hallway of anybody else to go say that, hey, they're forecasting 120% over allocation for the next 6 months. I'm not going to go have that discussion. It's the price you pay for crappy forecasting, right? And because that obviously, that question is going to come from the executive, right? However, if in this case you've got a named resource, that's a single-threaded role, and you're portending 200% allocation for a single-threaded role, then you better go address that situation, right? And you better get on it early, even if it's 6 months out, because there's a reason why you've got a single-threaded role. Likely, it's because it's a very unique skill set, and you better not bury your unique skill sets. So we have avoided numerous issues that used to plague us prior to us implementing a resource portfolio management approach that fully integrates all of our work. Okay, a few thoughts on Agile teams. We are a blended environment, as most peers in our industry are, meaning that we've got a variety of waterfall projects, Agile initiatives, production support work. But for Agile teams, I would submit to you that you very much need to be involved in resource planning for these teams. If you get somebody that comes at you and tells you, hey, we've got a dedicated team, it's fully cross-functional, and we're rocking and rolling, I'll say, great, God bless you. Almost none of our teams are that way. That's an aspiration for us. We are not going to be there for quite some time. Agile teams have to bring in shared resources, and they have to make sure that when those shared resources are committed, that they're going to arrive when they do, or you bog down the whole team. We also track the composition of Agile teams themselves. You have some teams that will never be cross-functional the way they're currently organized. For example, if you have specialized developer roles, your business analyst or the QA people that are on those teams are never going to be able to pick up that skill set. They're not going to do that. They're familiar with it, sure. They have that associational knowledge, right, that Donna spoke of, but they're never going to get that skill set. And if you bury that skill set, you bury the whole team. I would love to share with you stories about how other teams had to pull specialized people off of their teams to support specific efforts. And it essentially blew up the whole PI session, right? That whole quarter was blown away for those other teams. They did what they could against the backlog, but they lost the critical resources. So you've got to be thinking, if you're in a safe environment, which we're in, Scaled Agile Framework, you need to be coordinating with your product managers, product owners, the people doing lean portfolio management, so that you give them early visibility into what demand is headed their way, making sure it's in their backlog, and making sure that the timing works with the interdependencies, not only intra-role within the teams, but with these other external production support and Agile initiatives, and possibly with other Agile teams as the number of Agile teams in the organization grows. Okay, a couple of other things. Hopefully, if you have access to the kind of data that you have, you're using it to actually help in a forward-looking way. So, there's a part of me that says what's behind you is behind you, right? But on the other hand, you can learn from it. So what we love to do is take a look at what was planned for the year, what they've actually done year to date, and should you adjust your forecasted plan based on what you actually did in the last 90 days. We're able to give that kind of information every month to the resource management community and let them make those adjustments real time. Project managers can do the same thing. We love the fact that you can see plan and actuals right there in the project view. Super easy for people to see, hey, here's what I planned in May, here's what my actuals were. I probably ought to go have a discussion with this person because it looks like the trend is continuing into June, right? So, what are they doing? I was actually in a meeting just yesterday with a group of project managers, one of whom was fairly new to our enterprise. And I just happened to pick her project, and we were looking at it, and she started saying, who is that person? I didn't even know that person, right? And I looked at their actuals, and for the last 90 days, they've been billing big time to her project. She had no idea who they were, right? And again, this is not an indictment on her. She's new to the process, and education is an ongoing endeavor, of course. Just saying that, when you have the data doesn't lie. And as it turned out, even over the course of that meeting, as I was working with somebody else, she was pinging this person, and the guy was from a support group that actually was working on our project. So all of this is about full visibility and making sure that across the entire portfolio that everybody is working to a set of common lightweight processes, and especially executive management backed expectations. All right, last slide here. I could spend a lot of time talking on this, but I won't. What I'll say is we do things at all of these various cadences. We provide notifications daily when people get rejections or new constraints arise. We load data weekly. Our actuals get loaded weekly. We have tasks that we do monthly, annually, and on an ad hoc basis, we're always getting pulled into additional training, conversations, portfolio planning. We have an annual roadmap process that I lead sizing efforts for. All of these things you have to do. You have to make sure that the quality of your data and the visibility of your data are as good as they possibly can be. There are times, in fact, when you, if I can pop back here for a second, you have to do things by work type. It's always great if you can look at things project by project by project, but we have some groups that are production support that cannot tell you what project numbers they're going to be supporting 30 days in advance, but they can tell you, hey, historically, 30% of my team's time has been maintenance, X amount of time has been admin, right? Which leaves this much time for operational enhancement work, which if you're smart about how you model, then Tempus gives you ability just to go in and click off things, right, by certain attributes. Many is the time that I've gone into teams where new work has come in, and I've said, good, let's go in and just shut off everything you're doing that's an enhancement right now. We can go in and shut off low priority work and say, how much bandwidth do you now have to take on this work? And that prompts the right discussion as to, hey, should we do that, right? Because even low priority work, if you're about to deliver it, probably doesn't make sense to shut off. So all of these areas here are important. We've got several key integrations for us, and we're building more. Our Agile software is something that we're looking at automating the integration to. We already do that with our PPM tool. We do it with our time tracking tool. We are now doing it with our HR system so that we're aware of access management issues when new people onboard, people leave. Those things are important. What I'll tell you is that our RMO is, I would consider, wildly efficient. We literally drive millions of dollars worth of clearly definable hard dollar savings into our enterprise, and we have a staff of 3 people. It's myself and 2 of the brightest people that I could have ever hoped to hire. They are wonderful. I'd love to have a whole discussion about the kind of people that you ought to have staffing an RMO that supports cross-functional delivery like this. But critical thinking, judgment, and people skills are amongst those skills that you need to be hiring for. So very happy to entertain questions. I think I've about used my allotted time here. I'll turn the time back over to you, Greg.